The royal family has just delivered news that no one saw coming, and it has captured attention around the world. In a surprising turn, Prince William made an announcement that is already being described as a historic shift for the monarchy. Many had expected a routine royal appearance, filled with the usual highlights, but instead what unfolded has left people talking about the future of the crown in a whole new way. At Kensington Palace, the event began like any other. The summer air was calm, cameras were ready, and the crowd waited to see the familiar sights: Princess Charlotte's glowing smile, Prince George's cheerful wave, and the warm, composed presence of Prince William and Princess Catherine. Reporters anticipated photographs that would make the front pages by morning, but no one could have predicted what came next. Prince William stepped forward, his expression steady yet filled with determination. At his side stood Catherine, elegant and calm, her hand resting reassuringly on Charlotte's back. George watched attentively, his eyes carrying a maturity far beyond his age. William began his speech by honoring Queen Elizabeth II, speaking of her vision, her strength, and her hopes for the monarchy's future. His words were heartfelt, and emotion could be seen in his eyes as he remembered the late Queen's legacy. But it was his next statement that truly shocked the crowd. He declared that his family would be taking on a greater role in shaping the future of the crown, just as the late Queen had hoped. Then, with a pause that held the audience in silence, he announced that his daughter, Princess Charlotte, would begin her official royal duties as a representative of the crown. The reaction was immediate. Gasps filled the air, journalists hurried to record the moment, and even palace staff looked stunned. Charlotte, though still a child, stepped forward with a quiet confidence that surprised many. Her calm presence reflected both her parents' guidance and the responsibility already beginning to shape her role in the monarchy. Noticeably absent from the event were King Charles III and Queen Camilla. Their silence spoke louder than words. For many, it was a clear sign that power within the royal family was shifting. Behind closed doors, speculation had been building for months that the old guard's influence was fading. Subtle changes in protocol and growing public support for William and Catherine made it increasingly clear that the monarchy's future would be defined by new leadership. Though King Charles has only recently taken the throne, he already feels weighed down by age and tradition. William and Catherine, by contrast, appear energized and forward-looking. They continue to rise in popularity, consistently ranking as the most admired members of the royal family. Their presence at events doesn't just attract crowds, it captures worldwide attention. With every appearance, William and Catherine show that they are not only ready to lead, but are also redefining what it means to be royal in today's world. They bring a modern energy, a sense of purpose, and a deep dedication to their duties. This moment, with Charlotte stepping into the spotlight, marks the beginning of a new chapter, one that balances the traditions of the past with a bold vision for the future. They began moving away from old traditions, but inside the palace something quieter was happening. Royal advisors started whispering, not openly enough to be proven, but detailed enough to spark questions and curiosity among those paying close attention. Reports suggested that Prince William had been holding private talks with senior Commonwealth officials. At the same time, some sources hinted that Catherine was taking on quiet advisory roles, responsibilities usually reserved for senior royals like the King or Queen Consort. There were even surprising claims that Princess Charlotte had joined in on early media training sessions at a much younger age than Prince George ever had. While some dismissed these stories as gossip, insiders confirmed that Queen Camilla, in particular, was watching all of this very closely, determined not to lose her position within the royal family. Rumors also began to spread about the final letters Queen Elizabeth II wrote before she passed away. It was said she left personal notes to King Charles, Prince William, and Catherine. No one outside the palace knows what those letters contained, but what was clear is that after her death, William and Catherine started acting with far more confidence and decisiveness than Charles and Camilla. One particular moment stood out. William skipped an important meeting hosted by King Charles, choosing instead to visit a children's cancer unit in Manchester. The visit drew massive attention from the media, overshadowing the King's event in London on the very same day. While William never openly defied his father, the move was seen as a quiet act of independence, hinting at a subtle but undeniable shift. Though Prince George remains the official heir after William, Princess Charlotte's growing visibility has added a new layer of intrigue. Charlotte's appearances at public events have earned her admiration for her natural poise and leadership, qualities many compare to her late grandmother, Princess Diana. Some commentators even speculate about a possible adjustment in her future role, suggesting she might hold more influence than once imagined. While no such changes have been confirmed, the speculation itself reflects how Charlotte is already reshaping the image of the royal family. Then came William's bold announcement, delivered not by King Charles but by himself. The message was clear: the monarchy's future is already unfolding. King Charles may remain the head of state, but he is slowly retreating into the background, while William and Catherine step forward with growing confidence and purpose. The king's noticeable absence from one important royal event added to concerns about his health and ability to carry out his responsibilities. In the weeks leading up to this turning point, palace insiders noticed Charles withdrawing from public life more often, cancelling engagements and citing exhaustion. For a man long known for his precise routine and strict commitment to duty, this change was significant. It signaled a silent crisis within the monarchy, an unspoken recognition that leadership was shifting, and that plans for the future of the crown were already being reshaped behind the palace walls. At first, palace aides tried to calm concerns, with one senior official insisting that King Charles was simply taking a well-earned break after a demanding first year on the throne. But those who were closer to the situation sensed something deeper. The king was struggling not only with his health but also with a heavy sense of frustration, weighed down by the feeling that he was failing to live up to expectations. Charles had waited nearly his entire life for this role, yet when it finally came, he found himself overshadowed by his son. Wherever Prince William and Catherine appeared, the public greeted them with warm applause and genuine admiration. In contrast, Charles often came across as distant, his speeches more formal than heartfelt. And whenever he appeared with Camilla, controversy seemed to follow. Her presence, though accepted by some, remained uncomfortable for many both inside and outside the palace. These tensions only grew stronger as Charles reportedly argued with senior advisors about how to manage William's growing popularity and the clear shift in public sentiment. Behind the scenes, whispers began to spread that the king had considered a bold move to reassert his authority. There was talk of a major Commonwealth tour or even attending a high-profile international summit to remind the world of his position. But none of those plans ever worked out. Political obstacles and logistical challenges stood in the way, and soon, the rumors took a more dramatic turn. Palace insiders quietly claimed that Charles was privately considering abdication, not an immediate resignation, but a gradual handover of responsibilities to William. According to some, this transition was something Queen Elizabeth II herself had quietly encouraged in her final months, urging Charles to prepare for a smooth transfer of power when the time came. But not everyone supported this direction. Queen Camilla, in particular, was deeply opposed to any shift in influence that did not center around her and Charles. Having faced years of scandals, criticism, and setbacks before finally being crowned, she was not willing to step aside now. Becoming queen had been her lifelong ambition, and she was determined to protect her place. To her, William and Catherine's rising visibility was not just a natural shift. It felt like a direct challenge to the order she had fought to preserve. Yet, despite her resistance, change was already underway. Charles seemed powerless against the momentum surrounding William. His retreat from the public stage left a space that William filled with ease and confidence. Where the king appeared fragile and uncertain, William came across as decisive and steady. Soon, major events began highlighting this contrast. At the Queen's Consort, it was William, Catherine, and their children who stood at the center of attention, warmly embraced by the public. For many, it was clear, the balance of power had already shifted, and the future of the monarchy was taking shape before their eyes. That future became undeniable during a historic gathering in the gardens of Kensington Palace. The crowd expected nothing more than a routine speech, perhaps some polite words about charity or tradition. William appeared alongside Catherine and their children, calm and collected as always. But what happened next would be remembered for years. Taking the podium, William spoke with clarity and conviction, beginning not with politics but with respect. He paid tribute to his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, speaking of her legacy, her devotion to duty, and her strength in silence. The emotion in his voice, steady but heartfelt, set the tone for what would become a defining moment in royal history. It was more than just a speech, it was a moment that symbolized change, signaling that the royal family was stepping into a new era. Prince William's words were not only powerful but also deeply moving, showing a clear shift of energy and vision for the monarchy's future. For many watching, it felt like history was being written before their eyes. William didn't simply surprise the public. He inspired them, honoring Queen Elizabeth II while carving out a bold new path. As he stood before millions, William's tone was steady, but his message carried weight. Our voice will ignite a new beginning. Not by abandoning tradition, but by evolving it. The crown isn't a relic. It's a living promise of service, and that promise belongs to the future. These words were more than just a statement. They were a declaration that the monarchy would no longer cling to the past but instead move forward with renewed purpose. Then came the moment no one expected. William turned to his daughter, Princess Charlotte. Though young, she had always carried herself with a quiet grace that seemed beyond her years. With gentle encouragement, he guided her forward, announcing that Charlotte would soon begin her first official royal duties alongside her mother. She would attend public engagements, learn the meaning of service, and step into a role that would help shape the monarchy's future. The crowd was stunned, and even royal experts could barely contain their surprise. Photos of Charlotte standing proudly behind her father spread instantly across newspapers and social media. Her modest smile captured hearts around the world, making headlines within minutes. Yet this wasn't just about a young princess attending a few events. William's decision carried a much deeper message. By elevating Charlotte's role so early, he was quietly challenging centuries of royal tradition, where male heirs always held the spotlight. William was making it clear, his daughter's voice mattered, and her influence would not be hidden in the background. Beside him, Catherine remained calm and graceful, placing a steady hand on George's shoulder. It was a quiet but powerful image of unity, a family stepping forward together, not divided by roles or traditions, but united in their vision for the future. Outside the palace, the reaction was overwhelmingly positive. Editorials praised the boldness of William's announcement, crowds cheered, and applause thundered through the gardens. Across social media, Charlotte quickly became a symbol of fresh hope and modern change for the monarchy. But behind the palace walls, the mood was very different. For most, it was a moment of celebration. For one woman, however, it was a spark of fury: Queen Camilla. According to palace insiders, Camilla reacted with anger the moment she learned of Charlotte's rising role. To her, it wasn't just about a child stepping into the spotlight. It was about power, and the possibility that her own influence was beginning to fade. "She's just a child. This is madness," Camilla allegedly exclaimed, her words reflecting both disbelief and fear. For decades, Camilla had fought to rebuild her image. From being one of the most criticized women in Britain to finally becoming Queen Consort, she endured years of harsh media attacks and public mistrust. She had worked tirelessly to secure her place in royal history. But now, with Princess Charlotte suddenly celebrated as the new face of the monarchy, Camilla felt her own hard-won position slipping through her fingers. And that was something she could not easily accept. Even though Princess Diana is no longer here, her presence still lingers over every royal decision. For years, her legacy seemed untouchable, but one single speech by William and Catherine shifted everything. That moment rewrote the story of the monarchy in a way no one expected. Feeling threatened, Camilla quickly called an emergency meeting with senior palace advisors. Some say she even confronted Charles, urging him to release a strong statement to re-establish control and remind the world of the royal hierarchy. But Charles, weary and resigned, simply whispered, "Let it unfold. It has already begun." His words showed that even he recognized the tide of change was unstoppable. Camilla suddenly found herself standing alone. She had always positioned herself as the protector of tradition, but now she saw William's bold declarations as reckless and damaging. Surprisingly, she found a rare moment of common ground with others who also resisted William's vision. They were not united by friendship, but by shared opposition. Together, They tried to convince senior advisors that William's move would destabilize the monarchy's carefully managed image. But the reality was different. Palace staff who had once been loyal to Charles and Camilla slowly shifted toward William and Catherine. Foreign ambassadors began reaching out to Kensington Palace instead of Clarence House. The media, too, adjusted their tone, presenting William, Catherine, and their children as the modern face of the monarchy. Camilla's anger grew with every passing day. Reports even described her pacing palace halls late at night, slamming doors in frustration, making demands that few were willing to entertain. Charles, more withdrawn, quietly escaped to the countryside. Meanwhile, it became clear that the public had chosen their new royal family: William, Catherine, George, and Charlotte. Amid all this noise, one figure quietly but powerfully shaped the unfolding events: Catherine, Princess of Wales. To the public, she was the picture of calm elegance, admired for her serene smile and natural grace. But behind the scenes, Catherine had spent years carefully studying the fractures within the palace. She had learned the subtle rhythms of royal life and mastered the art of patience. Now, her strategy was playing out perfectly. Catherine wasn't just standing beside William as his wife. She had become the true architect of the monarchy's future. Where Camilla fought to rebuild her reputation, Catherine won genuine affection through authenticity. Every hospital visit, every heartfelt moment with children, and every small gesture of kindness only deepened the public's love for her. This wasn't a crafted image. It was real, and it was powerful. When William made his bold announcement about Charlotte, Catherine stayed silent in public. Even when confronted, she offered no dramatic responses. Her quiet restraint spoke louder than any argument. Behind closed doors, however, she was far from passive. She and William spent evenings reviewing media reactions, public polls, and planning their next steps. Some insiders even revealed that Catherine had quietly commissioned surveys months earlier to test public support for Charlotte's role. The overwhelming approval confirmed that the time for change had come. Catherine understood something crucial: that the monarchy could not survive by clinging to the past. To stay relevant, it had to grow and evolve. In Charlotte, she saw more than just her daughter. She saw a reflection of everything the crown needed to endure: Diana's compassion, Elizabeth's wisdom, and her own quiet strength. Catherine's mission was never about power for herself. It was about ensuring stability for the monarchy her children would one day lead. Once dismissed for her middle-class roots, Catherine had transformed into the monarchy's strongest guardian. She wasn't waiting to become queen. She was already shaping the crown's future. And when the dust settled, the most surprising truth of all was clear. The future of the monarchy wasn't speculation anymore. William, Catherine, George, and Charlotte were already stepping forward as its new face. Charlotte, calm and poised, stood out as a symbol of change. Her striking resemblance to Diana and Elizabeth only strengthened her image. With her first official duties announced, she was no longer just a child of royalty. She was becoming one of the crown's new pillars. George, in contrast, stayed quiet, his presence steady and composed, a clear sign of the king he would one day become. Together, this family embodied a monarchy not built on ego, but on unity, honesty, and humility. William and Catherine became the quiet architects of this transformation, proving that the crown's strength now rested not in bloodlines alone, but in trust, compassion, and integrity. Charles and Camilla may still hold their titles, but their influence had undeniably faded. The shift wasn't just felt in the United Kingdom, it resonated across the world. People everywhere saw a monarchy being reborn, shaped by those ready to carry it forward. Charlotte and George were stepping into their legacy, and one truth was undeniable: the crown endures, not by clinging to the past, but by being reborn for the future.